The Divine Tree humans, or Shinju, are villains with ideologies, principles, and backgrounds that differ from all other villains that have ever appeared in the Naruto and Boruto franchises. From the Naruto era to Boruto, we have always been introduced to villains whose motivations are rooted in emotions, grudges, trauma, power ambitions, or even the deepest desires and ambitions to change the world according to their own version of justice. Pain dreamed of a peaceful world, yet he planted it through wounds. With suffering as his language and fear as his reminder, he believed that only after the world felt the same pain would humanity stop destroying itself. And Madara dreamed of peace through illusion. Believing reality was nothing but endless conflict, he sought to trap the world inside an eternal dream, a paradise where pain, war, and hatred could no longer exist, even if that peace was nothing more than a lie. Kaguya and the other Otsutsuki sought not peace, but survival and supremacy. They devoured worlds for chakra, sacrificing civilizations so their clan could live. To them, life was merely fuel, and absolute power was the only truth. But the Shinju stand on a completely different level. They are not merely individuals with personal goals. There is no ambition for revenge, no trauma, not even a simple desire for power. Instead, they are entities born from the very natural concept of the Divine Tree itself. Because, once again, Divine Tree humans do not grow from life experiences, are not shaped by suffering, and possess no emotional bonds or tragic trauma like any human or shinobi that has ever existed in this world. Their existence more closely resembles a natural phenomenon with a pure consciousness, rather than a living being that thinks like a human. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? What makes Shinju so terrifying or iconic is actually the way they view humans, but not in a bad way. Rather, how they see humans as research and lessons they have never had before. After all, they are innocent entities, like wild animals born from something different and unprecedented. And of course, to say that they are completely terrifying is not entirely true, because no matter what their actions and decisions are in the end, they are all based on the final results they have learned, and also based on the experiences they have gained from humans themselves. Not because they harbor hatred or anything of that sort. For them, humans are not equal subjects, but objects of observation, sources of data, or even raw materials within their cycle of existence. The shinobi world is not regarded as a home, but as a system to be studied. And this is the fundamental difference between the Shinju and every villain that has ever existed in the Naruto universe. Because once again, while previous villains could still be engaged in dialogue since they possessed emotions and goals that could be understood, the Shinju instead operate outside that moral framework. They do not ask whether their actions are right or wrong, because the very concept of morality is irrelevant to their existence. And here are at least 5 Shinju or Divine Tree humans with varying levels of power. And we begin from the weakest to the strongest. The 5th Shinju is Matsuri. She is the manifestation of a shinobi named Moigi, whom we know as Konohamaru's teammate since their days at the Ninja Academy. Moigi became a Shinju. At least, that was revealed after Code's invasion of Konoha in the early chapters of Two Blue Vortex. It's not clearly explained how Moigi lost to Clawgrime and ended up becoming a Shinju, but at least when Konoha was in chaos due to Code and Clawgrime's forces, there was at least one moment when Matsuri was caught off guard and ended up being bitten by Clawgrime and becoming a Shinju. As a Shinju, Matsuri has a target or instinct to devour, and they are Konohamaru and Team 10. More precisely, Inoshikacho. One of Matsuri's abilities as a Shinju is known to be a sensor type. However, in Matsuri's case, she has the ability to communicate with tree roots, even those buried underground. So she can obtain any information through tree roots spread throughout the world, even under the desert sands. Matsuri's first battle debut was in Chapter 11 against Kazekage Gaara. It is not clearly shown how Matsuri fights, but at least she managed to seriously injure Gaara. And as I said before, although her fighting techniques or abilities have not been explained in detail so far, it seems that, judging from how her cloak forms a sharp weapon, that is most likely part of her fighting technique. After Matsuri's identity as Shinju was revealed in Chapter 4, Chapter 21 marks the end of his life as Shinju after being betrayed by Konohamaru and brutally cut down by Boruto. Next is the 4th Shinju, Ryu. Ryu is the Shinju manifestation of a shinobi from the sand village named Shinki. More precisely, he is the adopted son of Kazekage Gaara, and based on his instinctive desire to devour, His target is undoubtedly Kazekage Gaara himself. Shinki was revealed to be Shinju in Chapter 15 when he tried to protect Gaara and eventually turned into Shinju after his body was bitten by Tsumeaka, also known as Claw Grime. Ryu's abilities are more or less similar to Matsuri's, namely sensor-type abilities. However, in Ryu's case, he is on a different level. Iron Sand is part of his ability that allows him to detect, sense, or something like that. Because at the very least, after Ryu's awakening as a Shinju, he was the only Shinju who could detect the presence of Code, who had been hiding inside the Black Cube for who knows how long. When it comes to his fighting techniques or abilities, Ryu can create huge waves from his Iron Sand, which is very familiar to Gaara himself. He also has the ability to evade by breaking, dividing, or perhaps more accurately, turning into small particles of Iron Sand that cannot be detected by ordinary abilities. Not only that, Ryu's ability also allows him to control his enemies' bodies, turning them into puppets that he can control at will through his Iron Sand. Ryu's weakness lies in the sword technique mastered by Araya, or perhaps more accurately, thanks to the sword chakra infused with Shinki chakra, and combined with Araya's wind technique, it becomes Ryu's absolute weakness. With that sword, Araya is able to pull out or prevent Ryu from hiding behind small particles of Iron Sand. Unfortunately, after his debut as Shinju in Chapter 15, he met a tragic end in Chapter 21 after being defeated by Sarada Uchiha. His body was sucked into Sarada's new Sharingan ability and exploded or was destroyed, leaving nothing behind. For the third Shinju, to be honest, this is quite difficult. But based on the voting, the majority placed Mamushi as the strongest Shinju after Ryu. Mamushi is a Shinju manifested from Bug Chakra, and he is not a shinobi but merely Amado's assistant in the Kara organization. After becoming a Shinju, his instinct or desire to devour Ida, and for his first debut as a Shinju, it was in Chapter 4. Bug became a Shinju as a result of Code bringing him into Ishiki's dimension after Code was completely defeated by Damon. Instead of bringing Bug as a weapon or a remaining member of Kara, especially since he knows a lot about cyborgs, Bug ended up becoming a Shinju. Because at least after Code split the 10-tailed chakra and became Sumeka or Claw Grime, there was a moment that was not shown when Bug was bitten by Tsumeaka. Because based on what we saw in Chapter 4 with Bug's body trapped in the roots of a tree, it was enough to prove that Bug had been bitten by Tsumeaka. Based on its abilities or powers, Mamushi is one of the Shinju that can detect or perhaps even act as an absolute counter to Ida's Senrigan eyes. Because as we know, with the ability of the Senrigan eyes, Ida can see events in the past and even in real time. And for the first time, Ida spied on the hiding place of the Divine Tree humans, which was also the first time Ida was traumatized after Mamushi found out. In addition, one of Mamushi's abilities is to erase his chakra mark, which allows him to move without being detected by the sensor team. He also has an ability similar to Naruto's Shadow Clone. However, in this case, Mamushi is on a different level. His clones are not mere shadows, but actual bodies. And of course, he can create, or perhaps more accurately, split himself into a considerable number of bodies without dividing or reducing his power in the slightest. So, once again, it is literally like actual bodies. And the majority say that Mamushi's ability is equivalent to Madara's Limbo. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? But behind that power, there is a rather ridiculous weakness. The more bodies he splits or creates, the more his intelligence constantly decreases. In other words, the more bodies he splits, the dumber he becomes. And to prevent Mamushi from splitting his body, another weakness lies in his eyes. By destroying both of his eyes, Mamushi will not be able to split his body. At this point, from Chapter 4 until this script was written on January 1st, 2026, Mamushi still exists. Currently, he is fighting against Konoha and Boruto. Next, the second Shinju is Hidari. Hidari is the manifestation of Sasuke's chakra. Sasuke lost and ended up becoming a Shinju. At least that's what was revealed in Chapter 5 after a flashback with Boruto fighting Code. For its target or instinct, Hidari is aiming for Sarada Uchiha to devour her. In terms of basic abilities and strength, unfortunately, they haven't been revealed in detail yet, but at least Chidori and claw marks are some of his abilities. And in his first battle, it was also his last debut as a Shinju. He was defeated by Boruto and executed by Kawaki. Fortunately, in Chapter 13, Hidari was revived after Jura managed to seize his Togodama from Boruto. And as for the one and only Jura, he is not just an ordinary divine tree human, or even a manifestation of Shinobi Chakra. Rather, he is the pure incarnation of the Ten Tails itself. So, at this point, he is the strongest of the strongest. And of course, as an incarnation of the Ten Tails, Jura has a target to devour, and that person is Naruto. But this is not because of Naruto alone, but because of Kurama itself. As a boss and also the strongest villain, one of Jura's abilities and strengths lies in his incredibly strong physique. He also has no weaknesses, to the point that even Amado himself stated that he is at a level that is almost immortal. Basically, his defensive ability is the roots of the Shinju. With those roots, he can summon tree roots to regenerate or heal any wounds, and he can even restore his Rinnegan eyes if his enemy destroys them in the middle of a battle. In addition, Jura has two types of Bijudama, large-scale Biju bombs and small-scale sniper Biju bombs. Oh yeah, since every divine tree human, including Jura, is formed through a fusion involving Code's claw marks, it naturally means that each of them possesses the ability to teleport and even summon claw grime through those marks. This is because the claw marks themselves are half physical and half chakra, functioning as a hidden weapon rather than a mere chakra-based technique. And yep, those are probably at least 5 Shinju with the lowest rankings, starting from Matsuri to the strongest, Jura. But if I missed anything or got something wrong, please let me know. But at least, I'm sure that as of the time this video was published, I didn't miss anything. So yeah, thank you for watching, like and subscribe. I'm Nim without the E. See you in the next video. Bye-bye, Dadabayo.